All right, we're getting updates from the nerve centers of the election. So coming to you from the National Results Operations Center in Pretoria is our reporter Slindelo Masekane, and we're also joined by Lindsay Dentlinger in Cape Town's Election Results Center. Let me start off with Lindsay. Lindsay, when I spoke to you last, we were about 20% done with vote counting in Cape Town. Where do things stand now?
We're more than a third of the way already, Tafuma, and we have 5 of the 25 municipalities called, but 4 of those, Tafuma, I must point out, are hung councils. And for our viewers, what that means is that no party has an outright majority there, and in all likelihood, coalitions are going to have to be formed for those councils to govern. And with me to discuss that is political analyst Daniel Silk. Daniel, what is it going to mean? Particularly, we've seen in smaller towns, Prince Albert, the Cederberg, Laingsburg, and of course Kannaland, those hung councils that we have at the moment, already 4 more than we had in the previous election. What is it going to mean to govern in coalitions in these smaller towns that are already so poorly run and where residents are already so fed up with the services they receive?
Yeah, I think it's going to be very tough for these smaller parties, firstly, to find coalition partners that they can effectively get into bed with. It's very difficult, given the current setup within the councils, the lack of a majority, the horse trading, the positions that will be offered very often are more important than service delivery. And part of the problem with previous hung councils is that it's all been about position and patronage politics rather than about really looking after the needs of the electorate. So if these smaller parties can put all of this game playing behind them, then there's some potential, I suppose, to right a very rocky ship that has existed for many, many years. If it's going to be another round of just seeking out position, jobs for pals, patronage networks enhanced, then I'm afraid the current position is going to be perpetuated.
We talk about new kids on the block, but in many of these hung councils, there are even newer kids on the block, and they're not even political parties. In the Cederberg, for example, a residents' association could become the kingmakers. Why do you think it is that voters are going to lend or have lent their vote to people who have no experience whatsoever in running a municipality?
Yes, I mean, voters really in these municipalities haven't been able to extend their vote to the DA or the ANC. Both ultimately have lost ground to more localized political players and smaller players. I think voters are fed up. They're looking for change. They're looking for something new and fresh. It doesn't guarantee, though, that the decisions that they've made are necessarily going to be successful for the next 5 years or so. So I do think that we are likely to see rocky, unstable governance over the short term. And the question will be whether these councils really can attract some sort of management expertise. It's not just about the politicians that are put into positions of authority. It's about the bureaucracies that exist, and it's about the skills that are available in local councils to really do the job. And ultimately, this is what whoever is elected, whether it's local ratepayers associations, interest groups, or even smaller parties, they've got to find the skills that can do the job and bring them in to these local municipalities.
So far, the DA has only taken 1 council outright, and that's the Berg River municipality right now. Of course, all eyes are on how much of a majority the DA can maintain in the Western Cape. With a third of the way, what do you see the trend being in this election in terms of the big two, the DA versus the ANC?
Well, I think as expected, we've seen some erosion of support from the DA, certainly, particularly amongst their coloured support base to smaller political parties, mainly in the city of Cape Town, but perhaps elsewhere in the province as well. That erosion is not perhaps as dramatic as the DA would have feared prior to the election, and I think there's been some erosion as well from the ANC side as well. So overall, we're likely to see a weaker overall DA vote, but their cushion was so substantial from the last election that they are still probably going to have 55, 56% overall support, certainly in the city of Cape Town. From a provincial point of view, I think that the DA vote will drop to pretty close to 50%, making it provincially more vulnerable for the next national election in 24.
Interesting point there, Daniel Silk making, looking ahead at the next election. So really, Tafuma, the DA is the party that has everything to lose here in the Western Cape, with us now just over a third of the way in counting the votes here in this province. The only one where the DA really is firmly in the driving seat when we look at it from a national perspective.